How many times have you checked your phone since you woke up this morning? 10 times? 20? 50? Most people have no idea, and that's exactly the problem. Here's a number that should stop you cold. In 2015, the average human attention span was 12 seconds. By 2025, it had dropped to just 8.25 seconds. That is shorter than a goldfish. And before you laugh at that comparison, think about what it actually means. We have built the most advanced civilization in the history of the planet, and we can no longer focus long enough to read a single paragraph without reaching for our phones. This is not an accident. This is not weakness. This is not a generation of lazy people. This is the result of the most sophisticated psychological manipulation systems ever created, systems that have been deliberately engineered to hijack your brain's deepest wiring and turn your attention into a product that is bought and sold every second of every day. Today, we are going to go deep into the attention crisis. What is actually happening inside your brain, who designed it this way, what the research really says, and most importantly, what you can do to take your mind back. Because the good news is your brain is not broken, it has just been hacked, and hacks can be undone. Let's start with the scale of what we're dealing with, because when you see these numbers laid out together, it's almost impossible to believe. The average person now checks their phone 96 times per day. That's once every 10 minutes of waking life. 76% of people respond to a smartphone notification within the first 5 minutes of receiving it. Not because they choose to, because they physically cannot resist. Teen users now toggle between apps every 44 seconds compared to 2.5 minutes just a decade ago. And at work, Microsoft's 2025 Work Trend Index analyzed trillions of productivity signals and found that the average employee faces a ping from meetings, emails, or chats every 2 minutes during core work hours. That adds up to approximately 275 interruptions per day. And here is the part that devastates productivity. Research consistently shows it takes 23 minutes to fully regain deep focus after a single interruption. Do the math. If you're being interrupted 275 times a day, and each one costs you 23 minutes of recovery time, you are mathematically never in deep focus. Ever. The result: 80% of workers say they don't have enough time or energy to do their job effectively. 46% report active burnout. 59% of employees say they cannot focus for even 30 minutes without getting sidetracked by a digital distraction. And the average US worker loses approximately 1 hour and 18 minutes every single day to digital distractions. That's 340 hours per year. 8 full working weeks. Gone. These aren't soft feelings. These are hard numbers from controlled studies. And they point to one undeniable conclusion: we are living through an attention crisis unlike anything in human history. To understand why this is happening, you need to understand one system inside your brain. It's called the dopamine reward system, and once you understand how it works, you will never look at your phone the same way again. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter, a chemical messenger in your brain. It is often called the pleasure chemical, but that's not quite right. Dopamine isn't about pleasure. Dopamine is about anticipation. It's the chemical that drives seeking behavior. It fires not when you get the reward, but when you're about to get it. When there's a chance something good might happen. Your brain evolved this system over millions of years to keep you motivated, to keep you hunting, searching, exploring. Every time you were about to find food, find a mate, find safety, dopamine fired, and it felt urgent, irresistible. That urgency kept our ancestors alive. Now think about what happens when you scroll TikTok. Every swipe delivers what researchers call a microdose of novelty. You don't know what the next video will be. It could be boring, it could be hilarious, it could be shocking. That uncertainty, that unpredictability, is exactly what triggers your dopamine system hardest. Neuroscientists call this a variable reward schedule, and it is the same psychological mechanism used in slot machines. Not by accident, by design. In a 15-minute scroll session on TikTok, a teenager may consume up to 60 different videos, each requiring a total shift in context. 60 dopamine microhits in 15 minutes. Researchers have measured a 47% dopamine spike during short-form video viewing. The brain is essentially being flooded. And here is what happens when a system gets flooded. It adapts by becoming less sensitive. It down-regulates its own dopamine receptors. It raises the threshold for what counts as stimulating. Real life, a classroom lecture, a conversation, a book, a task that takes concentration suddenly feels unbearably slow. Not because those things changed, but because your brain's sensitivity has been recalibrated by a system that was engineered to overstimulate it. Psychologists have a name for this modern condition. They call it popcorn brain. A restless, jumpy, chronically understimulated state shaped by constant rapid-fire digital input. Now here is the part that most people don't want to sit with, because it's uncomfortable. This didn't happen to us by accident. It was designed. Social media platforms use what are called variable reward schedules, the same mechanism as slot machines, deliberately. The infinite scroll was designed to remove the natural stopping point that turning a page or reaching the bottom of a website used to provide. Autoplay was designed to eliminate the moment of conscious choice between videos. The notification system was designed to create a Pavlovian response, a conditioned reflex, so that the sound of a ping triggers an automatic reach before your conscious mind even registers what happened. Former insiders from Silicon Valley have spoken about this openly. Tristan Harris, a former Google design ethicist and the founder of the Center for Humane Technology, has described how product teams at major tech companies explicitly competed to maximize what they called time on device. Not to serve users, not to make the product more useful, simply to consume more of your attention, because attention is the product. You are not the customer of these apps. You are the inventory, and the design works devastatingly well. A recent meta-analysis of 38 studies revealed that prolonged TikTok use reduces prefrontal cortex responsiveness, the part of your brain responsible for focus regulation, impulse control, and long-term decision-making. Researchers at Nanyang Technological University found that heavy social media use is linked to difficulties sustaining focus, emotional fatigue, and compulsive behavior, especially in people aged 13 to 25. A significant portion of those participants said they struggled to maintain concentration even for content longer than 1 minute. And the effects cascade. Exposure to short-form videos before studying reduced students' attention span during reading by 31%. Students who use social media during study sessions are 2.2 times more likely to make attention-related errors. In 2013, users spent an average of 2.7 minutes per Facebook session. By 2025, it was down to 54 seconds. The content got faster, the brain got faster, and depth became the casualty. But here is perhaps the most alarming finding in all of this research. And it comes from a study published in Scientific Reports by researchers in Germany. They ran a controlled experiment. Participants performed attention and concentration tasks in 2 conditions. In one condition, their smartphone was present on the desk. In the other condition, the smartphone was removed from the room entirely. The smartphones were always turned face down and on silent. They never buzzed, they never lit up. Participants were told to ignore them completely. The result? Simply having the smartphone present in the room, silent, face down, doing absolutely nothing, reduced cognitive performance on attention tasks. The mere presence of the device consumed measurable mental bandwidth. Your brain, trained by thousands of hours of conditioned behavior, was using background cognitive resources to suppress the urge to check a phone that wasn't even making a sound. Think about what that means for every student who has their phone on their desk while studying, every worker who has their phone next to their keyboard, every person who sleeps with their phone on their nightstand. The device doesn't have to be active to impair your focus. It just has to exist in your field of awareness. And we need to talk about sleep, because the attention crisis and the sleep crisis are not 2 separate problems. They are the same problem feeding each other. Your brain consolidates memory, restores focus capacity, and clears metabolic waste products during deep sleep, specifically during the slow wave and REM cycles that require uninterrupted hours of unconsciousness. When you cut sleep short, or when you get poor quality sleep, your attentional capacity the following day is measurably impaired. Research shows that sleeping fewer than 6 hours on 10 consecutive nights decreases your attention to a similar extent as going without sleep for 24 hours straight. And smartphone use is one of the leading drivers of poor sleep quality globally. The brain remains awake under constant stimulation by apps and social media, which trigger dopamine secretion well into the night. A study of more than 600 adults directly linked more time on electronic devices to worse sleep quality. Participants who stayed up using smartphones reported continuously declining sleep quality over time, not just the night they did it, but chronically. So the loop looks like this. Phones impair sleep. Poor sleep impairs attention. Impaired attention makes it harder to resist the short-term dopamine hit of the phone, which leads to more phone use, which impairs sleep further. Around and around, a perfectly engineered trap. Let's talk about what this attention crisis actually costs us. Not in abstract terms, in real terms, deep focus is not just a preference. It is the cognitive state in which all meaningful human output is created. Every great novel, every scientific breakthrough, every piece of software, every work of art, these things were created in deep focus. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi spent decades studying what he called flow states, those rare periods of complete absorption where time disappears and performance reaches its peak. He found that human beings report the highest levels of satisfaction, meaning, and creativity during flow. And flow requires sustained, uninterrupted attention for a minimum of 15 to 20 minutes just to enter the state. If we are being interrupted every 2 minutes at work, if we are toggling between apps every 44 seconds, if the mere presence of our phone is draining our cognitive capacity, we are not entering flow. We are not creating our best work. We are skimming the surface of our own potential, convinced we are being productive because we are always busy. And this is not just a personal tragedy. A 2025 study found that 52% of people now skip videos longer than 60 seconds, even when the topic genuinely interests them. The average attention span of digital consumers has declined by 33% since 2015. Long-form video watch time has dropped 29% over the last decade. Deep reading habits have decreased 39% between 2014 and 2024. We are collectively losing the capacity for depth, for patience, for the kind of slow, effortful thinking that produced every major advance in human history. But here is what I need you to hear right now. Your brain is not permanently damaged. Neuroplasticity works in both directions. The same mechanism that allowed your brain to be conditioned toward distraction can be used to condition it back toward focus. The research on recovery is genuinely hopeful. A landmark study published in PNAS Nexus in early 2026 ran a controlled experiment where participants blocked mobile internet access for 2 weeks. Just 2 weeks. No social media, no news apps. No infinite scroll, just phone calls and texts. The results were striking. Sustained attention improved significantly. Mental health scores improved. Well-being scores improved. And critically, the improvements appeared within the 2-week window. The brain didn't need years to recover. It needed 2 weeks of protected space to begin restoring its natural capacity for focus. Other research found that a digital detox of just 1 week produced a 32% restoration of attention. Teachers who assigned phone-free study periods reported measurable improvements in student concentration within days. And separate research found that people who deliberately practiced sustained focus, through reading, writing, or any task requiring uninterrupted attention for 25 minutes or more, showed increased prefrontal cortex activation over time. The focus muscle, like any muscle, responds to training. So here is exactly what to do, not vague advice, specific research-backed strategies that work. The first strategy is physical separation. Based on the scientific report study showing that mere phone presence impairs cognition, put your phone in a different room when you work, study, or sleep. Not face down, not on silent, a different room. This single change has been shown to measurably improve focus and cognitive performance without any other intervention. The second strategy is notification bankruptcy. Go into your phone settings right now and turn off every non-essential notification. Keep calls if you need to, turn off everything else. Email, social media, news, apps. Every notification is a guaranteed interruption with a 23-minute recovery cost. You are paying that cost hundreds of times a day without realizing it. The third strategy is scheduled focus blocks. Pick one 25 to 90-minute window each day, ideally in the morning when your prefrontal cortex is freshest, and treat it as sacred. No phone, no notifications, no switching. One task. Use this time for your most important, most cognitively demanding work. This is called deep work. a concept developed by computer science professor Cal Newport, and it is the highest leverage activity available to a knowledge worker. 1 hour of deep work produces more meaningful output than 4 hours of fragmented, distracted activity. The fourth strategy is to deliberately consume long-form content. Read a book. Watch a documentary without your phone nearby. Listen to a full podcast episode without pausing to scroll. These activities are not just enjoyable, they are literally training your attention span. Every time you resist the urge to switch and stay with one thing, you are strengthening the neural circuits that support sustained focus. The fifth strategy is to protect your sleep. Charge your phone outside your bedroom. Set a hard cutoff, no screens 45 minutes before bed. The sleep you recover will directly translate into sharper focus the following day. This is not a lifestyle preference. It is cognitive maintenance. The sixth strategy is the 2-week challenge. Based on the PNAS Nexus research, delete social media apps from your phone for 2 weeks. Not forever, just 2 weeks, keep your accounts. You can check them on a computer if you need to, but remove the infinite scroll from your pocket. The research suggests that within 2 weeks you will notice measurable changes in your ability to concentrate, your mood, and your sense of how time passes. Here is the truth about the attention crisis that almost nobody says out loud. Your inability to focus is not a character flaw. It is not laziness. It is not a medical condition that needs medication. It is the predictable, documented, neurological result of spending thousands of hours interacting with systems that were designed by teams of engineers, neuroscientists, and behavioral psychologists to be as addictive as possible. Systems that are optimized not for your well-being, but for your engagement, not for your growth, but for your time, not for your life, but for their revenue. You were never supposed to win that fight without knowing it was a fight. But now you know, and knowing changes everything. Because the moment you understand that your attention is being systematically stolen, you start making different choices. You stop feeling guilty for struggling and start feeling angry at the design. And anger, directed in the right direction, is one of the most powerful forces for change there is. Your attention is the most valuable thing you own. More valuable than your money, more valuable than your time, because money can be earned back. Time moves forward regardless. But attention, deep, sustained, directed attention, is what separates a life of meaning from a life of distraction. It is what separates the work you are proud of from the work you barely remember doing. It is what separates being present for the people you love from being physically there, but mentally absent. So the question isn't whether you can afford to protect your focus. The question is whether you can afford not to. Drop a comment below. What's the one thing you're going to change this week? I want to hear from you. I'll see you in the next one.